Greetings of the day. Welcome to University Institute of Media Studies. This side Prabjot Kaur, and today we are going to discuss about copy editing process. Actually, copy editing plays very important role in any newspaper organization because this is the process in which person makes sure the context has been given properly. Problems related to error, formatting, semantics, and anything related to punctuation marks has to be checked correctly, and then person can send that copy for the printing purposes. So that is why it is going to be a very important task for any newspaper. That is the reason newspapers could have a different department for this, and even some small newspaper organizations can hire 1 or 2 person for the same thing. They can have a one copy editor who is checking the copy and make sure the proofreading as well. But some newspapers could have a proofreaders differently so that they can check its factual things and then they can send those things accordingly. So basically, in copy editing process, the main person who is responsible for the entire task has to check the copies very minutely. They have to observe everything which has been sent by the reporters or has been sent by the sub editors, because these news stories has been already written by some person, and after finalizing that news story, he has to check it and observing it minutely. He has to check the sentence formation. So that is why he needs to have proper information about that particular language. Whether he is working in Hindi, Punjabi or in English newspaper or in any kind of vernacular language, he has to have the proper information about the basic language so that he can check the copy, and if he is finding any sort of a mistakes in that copy, he can make it correct. So he has to check the language, the format, the punctuation marks and the sentence formation as well, because sometime the reporter has sent that report or the sub editor has written that thing with the proper flow, and maybe he can have some sort of a mistakes while writing, and in flow maybe he is not aware about some punctuation marks. So in that case, copy editor has to be make sure that he is checking every single sentence minutely, because he is going to be responsible for all those kind of things. And then he can check that these sentences are going with the flow. Sometimes a person can feel some kind of abruption while reading the newspaper. So that is why it is very, very important that continuity and consistency has to be there while writing stories. This thing has to be checked by the copy editor, and if he is facing these kind of problems, he has to make sure after the discussion with the sub editor or yes with the reporters as well, and with the accurate information he can make that copy worthwhile. So students can have this process and they can learn this technique while doing some little bit practices. This is very important. If students want to work in newspaper organizations, they needs to have the proper information or the basic information how they can do this copy editing process. You can have a copy written by any reporter. You can have a copy written by any fellow student. So you have to check that copy again and again. Maybe you have to read that copy for twice or thrice and maybe many more time, because the more you will read that copy, the more mistakes you will find with the time. Maybe at the one place when you have read that, you can find that sentences are not formed well. So you can change those sentences. After that, you can check that punctuation marks are not appropriate. So you can make sure that these words and these marks are well established. After that, you have to check the spelling mistakes, because this is print media. You have to be very much sure about the spellings. A little spelling mistake can hamper the entire meaning of that particular news. So that is why it is very important for you to get proper information about it. And if you are having that instinct that this information is not correct, it is better approach to talk that reporter or to talk that sub editor again and again just to get the proper information about that event. So this is how you can get information about the same. After that, they can send the same copy to the proofreaders who have to check that facts and figures. But in some organization, that copy editor is the one who is responsible for that proofreading as well. So if he is having that responsibility, he has to make sure the facts and figures which has been written over there has to be checked, properly corrected. So now I'm going to talk about the steps of copy editing process. First of all, person has to clarify their role, because at some places, as we have already discussed, they could have a different kind of roles and responsibilities. So first, if they are clear about their role, then they put proper focus on it. If they have to just check the copy related to facts and figures, then they has to be sure with that. But if they have to check that linguistic related things, then he has to be very much sure related to semantics, errors, punctuation marks, sentence formation, and yes, the proper spellings. These are the things which will help that person to complete their task by the deadline. Because in newspaper, we have to follow the deadlines and we have to submit the copy before that thing. Another point is read again and again. Person has to make sure that after having a normal checking of particular news story, he has to check it line by line, because only then he would be able to check the information which has been given here is correct or not. And with that, he will complete that task within the time period, and he can easily read it again and again if he is having that time period with him. So this is how these are the small tips and techniques. With the help of these, person can do copy editing in a very good way. And as a student, if you want to do a practice, then you can have a different kind of a papers with you, and even you can write one article, one feature, or any news story with you, and you can check that news story, you can edit that news story, you can find your mistakes. In this way, first of all, you will get the information how you can write that story, and other thing is that how to edit that particular story. So it will help you with the two techniques. So this is all about copy editing process.